Chapter 5 is about process costing, and we are going to learn how to do process costing, journal entries, and intermediate calculations. Process costing is for type of manufacturing that they produce the same production over and over again. It's not just one type job order type of manufacturing. It's a process. It's the same product over and over. For example, if you have a company to produce let's say ice cream, so the ice cream that you produce is the same ice cream, same packaging over and over. So that's a process cost. Or let's say chips, same thing. It's process costing. So let's see how we're gonna focus on weighted average method for our book and our exam. There is another way. It's called FIFO. That's also available if some company wants to do FIFO. In our class, we focus on weighted average, but FIFO will be available normally in a book as additional information. If you like to take CPA exam one day, definitely you need to know both of them because they might get tested on either FIFO for process costing or weighted average for process cost. Okay, so let's go and learn the weighted average. Okay, here is the exercise 1. It says the company produces bricks in 2 processing departments. So bricks is process costing because you always produce the same brick. Molding and firing. So they have 2 departments, and we have to do the accounting for both of them separately. Information related to the company's operation in March follows. And here the information is given. And says prepare the journal entries. So I'm going to show you the journal entries and explain over there what's going on. And that would be this one probably. Here we go. So to record raw materials used in production. First of all, we know we have raw material T account, but the moment that you need raw material into any of your departments, you need to debit that work in process, department 1, and also debit work in process department 2 for the amount of raw materials that has been transferred from raw material T accounts. Cool. Also, in the same time, you have a process to record the salaries expense that you pay or wages for those direct material, direct labor. So the direct labor charge goes again into department 1 working process, and also it goes some of it in department 2 working process. So far we have the raw materials and labor, but now you need to apply the manufacturing overhead. Normally you apply manufacturing overhead based on the predetermined rate that you have already calculated and we learned in previous chapters. So here we go. We're gonna credit manufacturing overhead for $62,000, and based on the cost driver, you apply a portion of it into the working process department 1 and a portion in the working process department 2. Okay, so far we have raw materials, we have labor, direct labor, and overhead. So those are 3 things that you need to produce something, right? Now, from department 1, you need to send some material to department 2. So therefore, department 2 will be debited to increase the transfer in completed products, $57,000, and department 1 will be credited to reduce and show the transfer out of completed product. right? Then obviously department 2 is get the job done, right? So as soon as department 2 is finishing the job, the finished goods will go to finished goods T account to increase that balance, and work in process department 2 will be reduced because of that transfer of finished goods, completed works, and transfer to finished goods. Now it's time to sell. When it's time to sell, normally you do 2 journal entries. You record accounts receivable, debit, and credit revenue, right? And the second journal entry is here. You also need to debit the cost of goods sold for the amount of sold product and take it out of the finished goods inventory and ship it to your customer. So finished goods inventory will be credited. So the journal entries are important to know how to do in manufacturing environment that they use process costing. The next problem is exercise 5.2, which says the company used the weighted average method in the process costing system. The following data are available for one department for October. So work in process, October 1st has 30,000 units with 65% covered in regards to material already entered, and 30% of conversion. So what is conversion? If you remember from previous chapters, conversion is 2 things. In order to convert raw material to final product, you need someone to convert, which is direct labor, and you need a place to convert, which is manufacturing overhead. So conversion is direct labor and manufacturing overhead combined. Why do we do that in here like this? Because it's easier. So you combine the direct labor and manufacturing overhead, and you put it in here and you call it conversion cost. So that way, at least you worry about just 2 things instead of 3 things. Work in process at the end of October 31st, they have the 15,000 units left. And in regards to material, it's 80% completed and entered. In regards to conversion, is about 40% completed and entered. The department started 175,000 units into production during the month and transferred, that means completed and transferred 190,000 units, completed units, to the next department. So they started 175,000 units into the production and they transferred 190,000. So it looks like what it means they started 175, but they transferred 190. So that means they transferred a little bit more than what they started, which is meaning whatever it was coming from previous month, they finished that. And also they sold that, they transferred that. Also, they started 175, so a portion of 175 is also transferred. So what it means technically is the 30,000 units that you have at the beginning, that is transferred, completed and transferred. And 190 minus 30, that's 160. So 160 of this started is also transferred, right? So 30 minus 190 completed, that means 160 also completed. 160 minus 175 started, that means 15,000 units still is left, and right there, as you see, it's 15,000. Got it? So 190 completed, which is 30 from last month. So the remaining 160 comes from here, 175. So 175 minus 160, it's 15,000 left. Got it? Okay, so compute the equivalent units of production in October. This is the first thing you need to do, to calculate the equivalent units of production. Because let's say we have 30,000 students in GCC. Yes, but what is the equivalent units for full-time students? Because some of those 30,000 students at GCC, they are not full-time students, right? So you need to calculate what is the equivalent units for full-time student, and then put this information into your budget so you can get budget from the government. Make sense? Same thing here. So we are trying to calculate what is the equivalent units of production. Okay, here we go. So unit transferred out in regards to material is always 100%, which is 190,000 units. And because again, it's transferred out, that means it's completed in regards to conversion also. So that is 100% correct, 190,000 units. However, equivalent units in the ending working process, it is 15,000 units at 80% for material and 15,000 units at 40% for conversion. Right? Those are equivalent units. If it's 80% complete or 40% complete, you need to calculate the equivalent units. So now it's equivalent units of complete equivalent units of 12,000 for material and 6,000 for conversion. If you add them up, equivalent units of overall production is what? 202,000 in regards to material and 196,000 in regards to conversion. So now that we have equivalent units of production, we can easily calculate what is the cost per unit, right? Cost per unit. Before this, we couldn't do it because we didn't have the equivalent units, but now we have. So we can calculate the cost per unit. Okay, so let's go to next problem. Here is the solution, and let's read the question first. So here it says this company uses the weighted average method in its process costing. Data for the assembly department on May appear below. And remember, this is just one department, and there are several departments in manufacturing process costing, right? So we are right now just focusing on one department. And remember, every department needs to have a separate accounting and calculation. Okay, so this department, at the beginning of the month, working process has $18,000 of material cost already entered into the calculation and process, and $5,500 of labor, and $27,500 of overhead that has been applied to the job. And that came from last month, which becomes, last month was like April, and now it's on May 1st, that's what we have. So what is your conversion cost? Conversion cost is the combination of these two. Got it? Conversion cost. Now, cost added during the month of May, we know that we added $238,900 worth of material into the production. We spent about $80,300 for labor, and we applied manufacturing overhead based on predetermined rate of whatever it was, $401,500. Equivalent units of production, someone already calculated that for us, which we learned in previous problem. So here is 35,000, and here is 33,000 equivalent units. And of course, if labor is 33,000, that means overhead is also 33,000, because remember, labor and overhead is always combined. We call it conversion. Okay, compute the cost per equivalent unit for material, labor, overhead, and in total. Here we go. So the material cost of beginning working process, remember from last month, we had $18,000 leftover. So that's beginning of May, 5,500 for labor and 27,500 for overhead. Cost added during the period, we know that we added 238,900 of materials, $80,000 for labor, and 401,000 for overhead. The total cost, we just add them up. So for material is 256,000, labor is 85,000, overhead is 429,000. So equivalent units of production, remember we calculated here and we learned how to do it. So in this situation, just so remember again, based on whatever we transferred out and what is left over, right? Remember that? Okay. So someone did that for us and gave us the numbers already. We appreciate that. So $35,000 for material and the 33,000 for conversion. 33,000 units for conversion. Now, the cost I know for materials is 256,000 divided by 35,000 equivalent units of production gives us $7.34 equivalent unit per unit for material. For labor is 85,800 divided by 33,000 units equivalent. That's $2.60. And for overhead, 429,000 divided by 33,000 equivalent units, that's $13. So material cost obviously is $7.34. We just calculated. Labor, $2.60. Overhead, $13. Total cost per equivalent unit is $22.94. That's cost of production. In case you have a multiple choice question, says what is the conversion cost for each unit of production is $2.60 plus 13, which is $15.60 conversion cost. Cool. Okay, let's do one more. Here is number 4. Data concerning a recent period's activity in the prep department. The first processing department in a company that uses process costing appears below. So equivalent units in ending work in process are given to us, 2,000 for material equivalent units and 800 for conversion. Cost per equivalent units is also provided. We don't need to calculate that. We did a sample in previous problem. So that's $13.86 for material and $4.43 conversion. Conversion, that means combination of direct labor and overhead. A total of 20,100 units were completed and transferred to the next processing department during the period. Okay, so required. Compute the cost of ending work in process inventory for materials, conversion, and in total. And here is the ending work in process. Remember, those are the units. Compute the costing of units completed and transferred out for materials, conversion, and in total. Materials completed are 20,100, right? So here we go. Very easy. Watch. So ending work in process, we have equivalent units of 2,000 for materials and 800 units for conversion. Multiply that with the equivalent unit cost. For material, $13.86, and for conversion, $4.43. And that gives you cost of ending work in process for material, $27,720. For conversion, $3,544. Combined work in process ending for the period is $31,264 showing as balance. Work in process for this department, ending balance is $31,264. If you want to see the details, obviously you look at these details. Now, what is transferred out to the next department? So transferred out are 20,100 units, which is 100% completed transfer. times the cost for material and conversion. And that gives you material cost and conversion cost. But if you combine it, you know exactly how much has been transferred from one department to the next department. 367,629. Okay, let's do one more to finish the whole process, which is bank cost reconciliation. It's just like bank reconciliation that you do for a business. You learned that in financial accounting, but now here is a cost reconciliation for the manufacturing to make sure that we don't miss anything here, right? So here is the problem. It says Meriam Corporation used the weighted average method in the process costing system. The baking department is one of the processing department in this strudel manufacturing facility. In June, in the baking department, the cost of beginning work in process inventory was $3,570. The cost of ending work in process inventory was $2,860. And the cost added to the production was $43,120. Required, prepare a cost reconciliation report for the baking department for June. Okay, so we have the beginning, we have the ending, and we know how much cost has been added to the production, and we want to do a cost reconciliation. So cost to be counted for and cost accounted for. Those are two different categories. First, you have to calculate what to be counted for, and then you start accounting for. Make sense? Those are two different things. So cost at the beginning, we know is 3,570. It's given to us. We need that we add 43,120 worth of material and conversion cost. So total that we need to account for is to 46,690. We know we are looking for that much money because we entered that into the production. Now we look at the ending work in process inventory, and it says 28,060, right? And then how much is completed and transferred out? How much is completed transferred out is not given, but in a real life you have to calculate that how much has been completed and transferred out. In a real life, this is what you do. If you go to previous problem, cost of unit transferred out, you see we calculated that. How much is it? 367,629. You see that? So we did that, right? You have to do the similar type of calculation. However, in here is not given to us, but we assume in this problem only that it should be 43,830 because the cost accounted for, that number, $, double line, has to match with the cost to be accounted for of 46,690. And if that happens normally in a real life scenario, then you are good. You are perfectly fine. Okay. So this, if you look at this, it says cost of beginning work in process plus cost added to the production during the period should be equal to whatever you have at the end plus whatever you transferred out. And if you solve that, you will see that transferred out will ends up in here. Okay, but this is just for this problem. Again, in a real life, that number, you need to calculate it exactly doing a calculation like this. So you can get that number for units, cost of units transferred out. Okay, so these 5 problems, it will complete technically a very good coverage of the whole chapter 5 that I like to cover. Of course, there are maybe a few more problems to do, which based on whatever I just covered in here, you should be able to do the rest of the problems, okay? Let me know if you have a question, okay? Stay in touch, bye-bye.